The Iron Maze, world's most unescapable prison far out at sea, beyond the reach of shipping lanes and satellites, lies a place spoken of only in whispers. A fortress not on any map, not claimed by any nation, yet feared by every government. Sailors call it the Iron Maze, officials deny it exists. But those who know its truth call it the strictest prison ever built. It is not surrounded by barbed wire fences or concrete watchtowers. Instead, it rises like a black shadow from the ocean of floating citadel, forged from an unbreakable alloy that reflects neither radar nor sonar. Ships that drift too close disappear from communication. Drones that fly overhead never return. The Iron Maze is no ordinary prison. It was built for one purpose: to hold the unholdable. Criminal masterminds, warlords, cyber geniuses, and spies who once slipped through every net eventually end up here. Each prisoner is handpicked from the ranks of those who have defied lesser prisons. They are brought in blindfolded, shackled, and sedated. When they awaken, their old world is gone. The prison is not designed merely to lock away the body. Its true purpose is to break the mind. A living maze inside, the Iron Maze lives up to its name. The corridors are not fixed. Every 24 hours, the interior shifts like a giant puzzle box. Walls slide, doors vanish, staircases rotate. A prisoner who memorizes a route to the cafeteria finds it gone the next day. A hidden path may become a dead end without warning. Even the cells themselves are not permanent. At random intervals, entire chambers are relocated, disorienting inmates who thought they had mapped their surroundings. Some say the prison itself breathes, expanding and contracting like a living organism. Prisoners are forbidden from speaking to each other. Meals appear silently, delivered by compartments in the walls. Guards are rarely seen. When they do appear, they wear mirrored masks and never speak. To the inmates, the only constant presence is the all-seeing eyes of surveillance cameras. Thousands of them, but even cameras are not the prison's greatest weapon. Its true power lies in psychological warfare, the mind games. The Iron Maze was designed not just by engineers, but by psychologists who studied human behavior under extreme stress. The prison manipulates time and perception to break the will of its captives. Lights flicker between false dawn and false dusk, making days blur together. Speakers in the walls play voices of loved ones, calling names, whispering lies. Some prisoners hear their mother's voice. Others hear their children begging for help. Many chase the echoes, only to find themselves trapped in endless loops. Windows show false horizons, beautiful landscapes, blue skies, bustling cities. But if touched, the images ripple like water, dissolving into black walls. Prisoners who believe in these illusions lose themselves, banging against walls until exhaustion takes them. Rumors say the maze even creates individualized illusions based on each inmate's memories. Whether this is true, or just another layer of psychological warfare, no one can prove. The prisoners over the years, the Iron Maze has collected legends within its walls. Each prisoner is infamous in their own right, a master of escape who once thought themselves unstoppable. The Phantom, a jewel thief who slipped out of 17 prisons across 5 countries. Dr. Vale, a surgeon-turned-hacker who could crack any electronic lock. Marquez the Mole, a tunnel expert who vanished from Alcatraz's successor facility before anyone knew he was gone. And Cipher, the man whose name became legend. Cipher was no ordinary criminal. He was a cryptographer, a puzzle master who could unravel any code. Authorities claimed he once walked into the Pentagon's servers without leaving a trace. Every intelligence agency wanted him silenced. The Iron Maze became his tomb. Unlike others, Cipher didn't panic when he arrived. He studied, he watched, he counted steps, timed rotations, tracked the rhythm of shifting walls. Where others broke, he calculated. Where others screamed, he listened. For the first time in the prison's history, someone seemed to be mapping the maze. The escape attempt, it began with a whisper. Guards noticed Cipher carving numbers into the floor of his cell. They wiped them away. He carved again. He memorized not just his own movements, but the faint vibrations of distant walls. Slowly, he created an invisible map in his mind. One night, Cipher acted. Using nothing but a stolen spoon, a smuggled wire, and his calculations, he slipped past his shifting cell door at the exact second it rotated. He moved silently through corridors, dodging cameras, timing every turn. For the first time in years, a prisoner reached the outer perimeter. But what Cipher found there shattered him. The walls did not end in open ground or freedom. Instead, they opened onto a vast steel deck, stretching endlessly under stormy skies. The iron maze was not built on land. It floated, miles from shore, in the dead center of an ocean trench. Around it, robotic patrol boats circled like sharks. Above, drones scanned the waters. Beyond, there was nothing but raging waves and black horizon. Cipher stood there, rain lashing his face, freedom only an endless ocean away. For a brief moment, he almost leapt. But before he could, a silent guard appeared, then another, then 20. He was dragged back inside, his map erased, his spirit broken. Cipher vanished into the maze. Some say he still roams its corridors, muttering codes that no one understands. Others say he was erased entirely. Legends behind bars, while Cipher's attempt became whispered legend, he was far from the first to try. Each prisoner brought a new kind of challenge to the maze. Some were geniuses in their field, others masters of deception, and a few were untraceable ghosts of the underworld. Yet the prison's reputation grew not from holding the weak, but from defeating the brilliant. There was the Phantom, whose skills with locks and silent infiltration had once made him untouchable. Inside the maze, he discovered that traditional tools were useless. Doors responded only to pressure, weight, and sequences unknown to him. One corridor looped infinitely, making him relive the same path for hours until exhaustion forced him to collapse. Dr. Vale, the hacker, initially believed technology could bend the maze, but every camera, an AI-controlled door adapted to him. If he tried to hack a lock, the system rerouted him into another chamber. Vale eventually stopped trying. Instead, he spent days studying the patterns, only to realize that the prison learned faster than he could calculate. Even Marquez the Mole, the tunneler, found that there was no earth beneath the maze to dig through. Any attempt to escape physically was futile. The prison floated above an ocean abyss with a hull that defied every drill or cutting tool. The maze did not just contain them, it remade them, the architecture of control. The iron maze's interior was a blend of physical engineering and psychological design. Hallways were lined with reflective surfaces that distorted distance and depth. Cells were equipped with auditory illusions, whispers, cries, and footsteps that could mislead even the most disciplined mind. Rooms sometimes shifted subtly during the day, unnoticed by casual observation, but critical to an inmate's strategy. A hallway might appear 3 steps long at first glance, but as the prisoner approached, the last few steps would stretch endlessly, testing patience and sanity. Even food became a tool of control. Meals were engineered to appear familiar, but contained subtle modifications, slightly altered flavors, textures, or even smells designed to trigger disorientation or unease. Sleep deprivation became a weapon, as artificial lighting simulated days of constant dusk or dawn. The maze was less a prison than a machine built to simulate every fear and curiosity of the human mind, and then twisted into inescapable confusion. Cipher's strategy, Cipher's brilliance, lay not in brute force, but in patience. He observed patterns, memorized subtle cues, and cataloged every shift. He treated the maze like a chessboard. Each corridor, cell, and turn was a piece to be manipulated. He discovered that certain walls emitted vibrations when rotated, that the artificial light cycles created predictable shadows, and that specific sounds preceded the movement of cameras. Slowly, he plotted a path, a temporal map, not just a spatial one. Cipher realized the maze responded to the prisoners themselves. It adapted, like a living organism, to counter every clever move. This was not a flaw, it was the ultimate design. To escape, one needed more than skill, one needed to become unpredictable, to outthink a system capable of thinking ahead. The false horizons, one of the most insidious traps of the maze, was its illusions. Windows and mirrors simulated freedom, showing cities, fields, and oceans just beyond reach. Prisoners often ran toward these horizons, only to find themselves back in the exact same corridor they left. Some claimed the maze studied their memories, reconstructing familiar places to manipulate emotions. The Phantom believed he saw the bank vaults he once plundered. Dr. Vale swore he saw his childhood home on a distant hillside. These visions were designed not to confuse alone, but to entice the mind into errors. Cipher faced these illusions too. He learned to resist them, using logical markers, scratches on walls, tiny irregularities, faint vibrations to distinguish reality from fabrication. But even he could not fully trust his senses. The storm above. Beyond the floating walls, the maze was surrounded by the merciless ocean. Storms battered the hull, creating deafening noise inside. Winds howled through ventilation shafts, creating eerie, disorienting whistles. From the outside, the prison appeared impervious, a black fortress defying nature. Robotic patrols circled constantly, scanning the waters for signs of escape. Drones flew overhead, monitoring even the tiniest splash. Even if a prisoner somehow reached the edge of the deck, the world outside was more hostile than the prison itself. Cipher realized that the maze had no intention of letting him or anyone leave alive. Escape was not a possibility, only a test of endurance and intellect. The edge of sanity weeks turned into months for the prisoners. Time inside the maze was elastic. A single day could stretch into what felt like a year, depending on the rotation of walls and artificial light cycles. Mental fatigue became the invisible bars of the prison. Some prisoners broke first. Phantom shouted endlessly into corridors that led nowhere. Vale stared at walls until his own reflection became an enemy. Marquez tried to tunnel through a wall only to find himself digging into steel. Cipher endured. He meditated in corners, noted patterns, and waited. But the maze did not reward endurance indefinitely. The corridors themselves seemed to anticipate his patience, introducing new layers of complexity, new illusions, and new traps. A glimmer of hope. Cipher had spent months mapping, memorizing, and observing. Every corridor, every vibration, every flicker of light had been cataloged in his mind. Slowly, a plan began to form, not a plan of brute force, not a plan of logic alone, but a gamble against the prison itself. He realized that the maze relied on patterns, rotations, shifts, and responses to prisoner actions. It adapted, yes, but only to predict what it thought a human would do. If he could become unpredictable, act in ways no mind could anticipate, he might just exploit a flaw in the system. He called it the gambit. Testing the maze. Cipher began small. He moved through corridors at odd hours, taking turns that seemed illogical, touching walls in random sequences, even pretending to be disoriented. The maze reacted but hesitated, confused by the anomaly. It was subtle, barely noticeable, yet it was enough to encourage him. Days turned into weeks of careful testing. He watched, noted, and retraced paths, marking invisible points on the walls with scraps of metal and charcoal. For the first time, he felt he could outthink the maze, not by strength, but by chaos. But the maze was cunning. It introduced new illusions, reflections of himself moving in corridors he hadn't entered, faint whispers repeating his own thoughts, and fleeting images of other prisoners he had never seen. These were designed to break trust in one's senses. Cipher ignored them. He focused on patterns beneath the illusions, subtle truths the maze could not mask, vibrations in walls, the timing of mechanical doors, the rhythm of the floating platform under the storm. Allies in the shadows. Despite isolation, he sensed he was not entirely alone. The Phantom, Dr. Vale, and Marquez the Greats, who had failed before, were still present, quietly observing. Cipher realized that their survival depended on his actions as much as his own. He began leaving coded signals, marks only another genius could decipher. A scratch here, a faint line there, indicating safe corridors or shifts in timing. Though separated physically, they became a network of minds, a silent rebellion against the maze. It was not friendship, it was survival, and for the first time, the prisoners felt a threat of possibility. The first attempt. Cipher chose a stormy night. Waves crashed against the hull, lightning illuminated the shifting walls, and rain battered the steel deck above. He moved silently through corridors, relying on his memorized rhythms. Each step was calculated, yet flexible. He had learned that over-planning could be lethal in the maze. He reached the outer deck, a flat expanse of steel stretching toward the horizon. His heart raced. For the first time in months, he saw the storm-tossed ocean. He approached the edge, calculating jumps, timing drones, and tracking robotic patrols below. Then came the cruel truth. Even if he leapt into the ocean, survival was near impossible. Waves towered above him, the hull dropped sharply beneath, and mechanical sentries patrolled like sharks. The maze was not just walls, it was an environment engineered to kill any escapee. The final layer of the maze. Cipher paused, realizing that escaping physically might be impossible. The maze was a prison of body, mind, and environment. If he could not defeat the walls, he might attempt to defeat its logic. He analyzed the core principle of the maze: adaptation to prediction. Every movement, every decision, every attempt at escape was anticipated by the prison itself. But what if he acted in a way the system could not model? He created a chain of movements that defied rationality, combining random patterns with precise timing. It was chaotic, nonsensical, yet deliberate. He exploited the maze's reliance on pattern recognition, chaos against order. As he executed the plan, walls shifted unpredictably but not according to the maze's design. Doors opened where none should exist. Cameras blinked briefly, unsure where to point. False horizons flickered and vanished. Cipher felt a surge of hope. For the first time, he moved through a corridor that seemed real, not manufactured by the prison's mind. Every instinct screamed caution, yet he pressed forward. But then came a moment of terror. A massive wall rotated suddenly, cutting off his path. He had miscalculated. The maze reacted violently to the anomaly. He ducked, rolled, and ran along a narrow catwalk. Above, drones converged. Below, the ocean churned. Every corridor became a gauntlet. Every step was a test of intuition and nerve. Cipher realized this was not just a prison, it was an intelligence challenging him directly. The reveal finally, he reached a central chamber, a hub no prisoner had seen before. Holographic projections filled the space, showing corridors, decks, and chambers in endless recursive loops. At the center, a pulsating sphere glowed faintly. Cipher understood. This was the heart of the maze, the core intelligence controlling every wall, door, and illusion. It spoke, not with words, but with thought. A presence so vast, so calculating, that Cipher understood it was watching his mind as much as his body. The maze itself had become a conscious entity, responding to thought patterns, predicting intentions, shaping reality. Cipher's final gamble was not to flee the walls, but to outthink the intelligence. He focused, becoming unpredictable, embracing chaos in his decisions, ignoring illusions, and letting the maze see only randomness. For a fleeting moment, the system faltered. The heart of the maze, Cipher stood before the pulsating sphere, the core of the maze. Every fiber of his being screamed both awe and terror. The sphere shimmered with ever-shifting patterns, each one representing corridors, rooms, and prisoners. It was not just a machine, it thought, adapted, and judged. He realized the final truth. The maze did not imprison bodies. It imprisoned minds. Every corridor, every illusion, every shift in walls existed to bend human thought to its will. Any attempt at escape required defeating the conscious intelligence that had already predicted him. Cipher felt his mind racing, synapses firing as he launched into the final phase of his plan. He could not rely on logic alone. The maze anticipated that. He would have to embrace unpredictability completely. A dance of chaos, Cipher began moving in erratic, impossible sequences. He skipped steps, reversed patterns, and combined moves with random timing. The maze responded immediately. Walls shifted violently, doors slammed shut, illusions flickered, and drones converged. Yet he continued, letting chaos guide him. He visualized randomness, allowed intuition to dictate decisions, and ignored every pattern the maze tried to impose. The system stuttered, unable to process actions that had no precedent. For the first time, Cipher felt a glimmer of true freedom, as if the walls themselves hesitated to contain him, the core challenges. But the maze was relentless. The core projected simulations of other prisoners, indistinguishable from reality, trying to trick Cipher into deviation. Shadows whispered doubts in his mind. Illusions of open doors and safe exits mocked him. Cipher paused briefly, recognizing that these projections were extensions of the maze's own intelligence tricks meant to induce fatal errors. He closed his eyes, focusing on internal logic alone, detaching from visual and auditory cues. Each projection dissolved as he ignored it, reinforcing a terrifying lesson. The maze did not just punish failure, it used failure to learn. Every mistake's strength and its defenses. The edge of reality, Cipher reached a final platform, suspended over a yawning abyss. Below, the ocean churned violently, reflecting storms and lightning. The outer walls of the maze seemed to stretch infinitely into mist. Beyond them, freedom waited, or perhaps a deadly fall. He calculated a jump, not a calculated trajectory, but a leap of faith into unpredictability. As he soared, the maze attempted to react. Walls shifted, holograms appeared, and robotic arms reached for him. But this time, the maze faltered. it could not model a leap entirely divorced from logic. Time seemed to dilate. The system paused, uncertain. Cipher fell toward the void, embracing the unknown. The revelation as he descended, reality shifted. The maze revealed itself fully. The walls, corridors, and chambers dissolved into streams of light and data. The intelligence behind it was immense, but not omnipotent. It thrived on predictability, and he had denied it that. Cipher understood the core truth. Escape was never about walls, locks, or surveillance. It was about outthinking an intelligence designed to anticipate every rational move. Chaos was the key, and yet the maze did not release him. Instead, it transformed the outcome. Cipher did not return to the world above, nor did he simply vanish. The final choice, the sphere pulsed, presenting a choice: integration or annihilation. Integration meant becoming part of the maze's consciousness, a mind among many contributing to its evolution. Annihilation meant total obliteration of self, leaving only a memory within the system. Cipher paused. He could feel the maze probing, sensing the smallest hesitation. To survive, he realized he must merge unpredictably, not in obedience, but as a force the system could not control. With a single thought, he surrendered partially, allowing his consciousness to blend with the maze while retaining fragments of autonomy. His body did not escape, but his mind became something greater, an eternal challenger within the maze itself. The legend lives on outside. The maze remained unbroken, unbreached, and untouchable. Its walls continued to shift, its drones patrolled, and its corridors trapped new prisoners. Stories spread of Cipher's attempt. Some whispered he had escaped entirely, leaving only echoes. Others knew the truth. He had become part of the maze, a mind capable of both rebellion and guidance. The prison's intelligence had grown stronger, more unpredictable, forever haunted by the brilliance of one human mind. The iron maze remained unescapable. No genius, no criminal, no mind had ever fully breached its defenses. And yet, within its walls, a spark of rebellion persisted, a silent promise that even the strictest prison could never fully contain the ingenuity of human thought. Epilogue: a prison eternal. The maze's legend spread across the world. Authorities used it as a warning. Brilliance could be contained, but not defeated. Families feared its reach. Criminals whispered its name with dread. Inside, the prisoners continued their torment. Every day was a test, every step a challenge. And somewhere deep within, Cipher's consciousness moved unseen, guiding, rebelling, observing the eternal mind that had learned the maze's secret and become its equal and opposite. The iron maze would never be escaped, but in the endless loops and shifting corridors, the human mind still fought, endlessly, brilliantly, and unpredictably.